Right, so as we mentioned, let's jump into all things travel and tourism this afternoon. So just in terms of the agenda and what we'll cover off, so we're going to look at the context. We all know that 2024 and the years before that have been filled with reform. We're going to do a bit of a catch-up around that. We're going to talk about the outcomes of the rapid review and the implications for travel and tourism. We'll quickly touch on the funding list for TT, planning the curriculum and resources and support for funded qualifications. So those are all quite generic. Then we'll quickly touch on level 2 to bring an update in terms of where we're at with that. There'll be a slide with some useful links that you will obviously, when Mark distributes this, all of those links will take you to the relevant information. We'll look quickly at next steps, and then there'll be a Q&A session. So without further ado, let's go to the next slide. So context. So just as a brief sort of, I feel like a historian here, and I've only been sort of with the BTEC portfolio for a couple of years, and there's been a lot of change. So just as a catch up, then in 2021, level 3 and below policy landscape sort of changes were announced. There was academic and technical pathways that were put alongside T-levels, academic A-levels and AAQs, technicals and the qualifications aligned to occupational standards. And then there was a schedule of defunding some qualifications, starting with the low or no registrations. And that feels like a lifetime ago, but I'm sure many of you remember the detail back then. So 2022, DFE published criteria to develop these reformed qualifications. The cycle 1 subject areas and sizes were initially published, and then once again we started to look at defunding of the low and no qualifications, and that was announced. 2023, there was a further defunding announced, and AOs could then submit qualifications for cycle 1 for funding approval. So that happened from a level 3 perspective in the July, and then at level 2 in the November. So 2024 saw some further changes in terms of some of that reform. So level 3 and level 2 cycle 1 approved the new set of qualifications in the April-September. We were then very quickly thrown into the middle of a general election, and the cycle 2, level 3 and level 2 were paused in terms of decision. A rapid review was called in the July, and then we've also had in the motions of the curriculum and assessment review, which I'll just refer to as a CAR review going forward. 2024 and 25 defunding was reversed in the July, and then there was some opportunity for some waive 4 appeals that was announced in November. So the new government, in terms of their focus, so they focused the review on post-16 qualifications, reform at level 3 and below, alongside the recontracting of T-level qualifications to ensure these high-quality qualifications continue to be available to learners. Right, so what was the rapid review? So as in the previous slide, in July 24, the new government announced a focused review on post-16 quals, reform at level 3 and below. The review considered whether funding should be removed from these qualifications and other qualifications due to be funded in 25. Those qualifications that appeared in an overlap with T-level list, so these were the ones that were up for consideration, and then all qualifications at level 3 in cycle 1 subjects that are not approved for funding, not approved for funding as an AAQ or a technical. The outcomes of the review were published in December, and we were all waiting in anticipation for that detail. So the outcomes of the rapid review November 24 essentially saw that the qualifications for travel and tourism, as we know them, would be funded until 31 July 2026. And so you've got all of the sizes there from your 180 to your 1080. So essentially business as usual, and that extension to 31 July 2026. So the key outcomes of the review was that the AAQs and the technical qualifications in Cycle 1 subjects continue to be first teach for 2025, and I'm quite sure you would have seen a fair bit of activity around those AAQs that we will we have funding for. All RQF BTEC Nationals 180s 360 qualifications in these sectors remain defunded from 31 July 25 and are replaced with our new AAQ and technicals. The one AAQ and 2 A-level study program has been scrapped, and centres now can revert to choosing study programs that are right for their learners. None of this impacts travel and tourism because we've had that extension, but for future reference, there'll be more information available, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. Each sector's funding is reviewed independently and has a bespoke funding outcome. Level 2 Cycle 1 will continue to be first teach September 2025. So as a reminder, which sectors and qualifications sit in Cycle 1, you've got applied science, construction, early years, engineering, health, and social care and IT. So the funding list for travel and tourism, as previously indicated, business as usual, first, in terms of 26, 27, 31 July, those are the qualifications that we will continue to offer. No changes there. So I guess to give a little bit of insight in terms of what will happen from 2026 onwards, and this is where it's key in terms of the impact that will have on travel and tourism, and where there'll be further reform of qualifications. So the DFE statement is that we have announced that we will invite awarding organisations to submit further new level 3 qualifications in the spring. And they'll be in health and science, construction, digital and education early years, and in the care services route. This will continue the process of reforming these routes while the curriculum and assessment review looks at the curriculum more broadly and will allow more newly reformed qualifications to be available for first teach in September 26. We will provide more information on the timetable for this process as soon as we can in the new year. So we're in the new year, so obviously as and when we get information from the DFE, we will publish it. There are links within the set that will take you directly to a dedicated web page that essentially updates the minute that we get, well, not the minute, but as soon as we have the detail and we've understood what it is what the parameters are, and then we will publish that. With regard to the reform of other level 3 qualifications, so outside of those sectors and level 2 and below, we will provide more information in due course. And we've just taken a bit of an extract. So this is where you see travel and tourism is mentioned. So how does this affect qualifications in particular subjects? So the routes in scope essentially is what's listed there, and the DFE will consider how these are reformed post the CAR review. So essentially, once again, business as usual, nothing changes from a curriculum perspective, everything continues with the existing travel and tourism qualifications, and we will then wait for further outcome in terms of that review. curriculum planning. You'll be surprised that there'll be no change to the curriculum 25, 26 and 26, 27. So business as usual, you can continue your planning and your programs with confidence. So we're not planning on making any changes, any updates or anything else to those current qualifications. And obviously post the car review, we'll have a better idea of what it is that we can offer. So I'm just going to reverse back. Some of you may have been involved, although we, from an AAQ perspective, early last year, we had started to look at what it is that we could offer, looking at the DFE's criteria and understanding what we could do within the parameters. So depending on the outcome of the car review, we're already ahead of the game. We were just waiting for that submission window to open earlier last year. And obviously with everything else that had happened, the window was closed. So as soon as we have the outcome, we essentially have something that we think will excite you. But we will wait for further outcomes from the car review, and then in terms of understanding what our next steps are with that particular sector. The training and support, and all of you will be pretty familiar with what's currently available, but just as a refresher. So if we look at the spring term 2025, so as a reminder, we've got cycle 1 AAQs. You have the getting ready to teach, getting ready for internal assessment as part of that offer. That'll be live, and then we'll also have the on-demand training. Bite-sized videos, and essentially some of these will cover topics like the roles within a centre and how to support your exams officer, exemplar delivery practice at a unit level, a run through of Pearson set assignment briefs and how to deliver these. So of course, this is all relating to the new cycle 1 AAQs. And the summer term for 2025, further support and training will be available. So once again, cycle 1 AAQs, getting ready to teach. We'll have some transitioning workshops, delivering specific units, getting ready for internal assessment, getting ready for external assessment. And then there'll be further in terms of those videos, more titles will be created and made available based on the latest developments and customer feedback. So a really good offer in terms of that wraparound support. And of course, from an AAQ, the new AAQs, if any of you have any feedback, if you'd like to see additional training, then you by all means do let us know, and that can go into a feedback loop. So then when we start to determine whether we've hit the mark in terms of those materials or whether there's additional material that you would all welcome. The support, so standard support, there's no changes here. So essentially, you'll be looking at the delivering BTEC, the teaching and learning support, the access to scripts. John Wooten is a subject advisor for travel and tourism, and I work quite closely with John. The results plus, and then exam wizard. So all of those have links that take you directly to the web pages and all platforms that are associated with that. So there's plenty in terms of the support, and you're probably all very familiar with that support. The resources and further support available. So there'll be delivery guides and centre standardisation materials, lead examiner reports, further training and past papers. So, BTEC as it currently is, with the structure in place and the support in place, does not change, and we continue to offer that requirement going forward. So let's touch on level 2. In terms of where we're at here. So as some of you would already know, the post-16 level 2 reform rollout has been paused, and the DfE are rolling out the reform over 3 cycles. This will be obviously as part of the post-CAR review. This will be revised later in 25. The only qualifications at level 2 that will have funding approval removed in 25-26 are those which an awarding organisation has told the DFE will be directly replaced by one of the reformed technical qualifications in cycle 1, or all other qualifications remain funded. So in cycle 1, the first Teach 2025, you're looking at technical qualifications in construction, education and childcare, engineering and manufacturing, healthcare, healthcare and science. And in cycle 2, indication for first Teach 26 is technical qualifications in groups 2 to 6, all other IFH occupational routes, etc., legal, finance and accounting, transport and logistics, catering and hospitality, the technical progression in digital and engineering, and academic progression in applied science, health and social care, IT and computing. And then cycle 3, first Teach September 27, technical progression in protective services, sales and marketing, and academic progression in sport, art design, music, performing and production arts. All of that is as it was, but is now paused due to the review. So we'll wait for the final outcome on that. The current post-16 level 2 offer, so these qualifications, just in terms of what's on your screen at the moment, you'll be familiar with these two, and we will only know the outcomes of this particular set of qualifications and or the future post that CAR review. A page for you on the useful links. As I mentioned, there's the level 3 reform page. Always keep an eye, obviously there will be updates in terms of the funding guide, and then the DFE links if you wanted to delve into a little bit more information in terms of what it is that the DFE has been considering and or has put in motion. The next steps. So once again, it feels like it's a repeat, but it's really just sort of bringing that message home. The DFE have paused cycle 2 submissions for level 2 and level 3. The submission of these qualifications will be confirmed later in 2025. And the DFE will open a new cycle 2 for additional titles in HSC, Applied Science, Construction and Digital. That is TBC to be confirmed. And for all other sectors, qualifications that need to be retained long term will be reformed and informed by the curriculum assessment review. And we expect to know more later this year.